Figures released by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC) indicates that with a population of over 190 million in 2017, there were 40.6 million households with only about 7.5 million registered with distribution companies and about 33 million unconnected as of then. These figures leave a larger population of Nigerian connected and about 4 million connected but not metered. The larger picture is, of course, getting all Nigerians connected to the national grid for the supply of constant electricity. But the immediate concern, which the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission seeks to solve, is getting the already connected population. That means providing meters for over 4 million Nigerians. And this is supposed to be achieved by a program called Meter Asset Provider Map, regulated by NERC. Well, that's our story on this episode of Big Story. You're welcome. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
Lighting up Nigeria has been a long-term aspiration of various administrations. Even after the privatization 6 years ago, providing constant power to the populace continues to look like a Herculean task. After the admittance of the private sector into the electricity fold through mostly the distribution companies, the DISCOs, the challenge of inadequate and obsolete infrastructure became the major theme of discussion, and solving this problem requires huge financing, which is why, among other efforts, the federal government has approached the World Bank for a $1 billion loan for the power sector. Back home, the DISCOs complain that the inflow of revenue has not been as expected, and this has stunted the infrastructural development intended by the privatization process. DISCOs are supposed to make revenue from consumers of electricity. However, they've complained of the amount paid as tariff, but even worse is the challenge of electricity theft and non-payment by customers, which have been captured in the term Aggregate Technical, Commercial and Collection, ATC&C. On the customer side, the excuse for some has been the issue of estimated billing, which has birthed the term crazy billing.
Estimated billing is worldwide, it's not only in Nigeria. I'm just saying that because a lot of people perceive that, it's fraud, it's this, it's that. Even in the US, there's estimated billing. That notwithstanding is not the best option, because in estimated billing, the customer can be cheated. The customer can also cheat. So it's neither here nor there, really. So for the DISCOs, it's not in the interest of the DISCOs to be doing estimated billing. People think that, they do estimated billing just because they want to steal money No. Some people have been billed 4,000 naira, whereas really they are consuming more than 10,000. There was a time in my house the meter got spoiled, so they put me on direct connection. And they were charging me 15,000 naira. To them, that is okay. But by the time the meter was fixed, they were actually charging me. I was vending 120,000 naira every month.
Over time, it's been agreed that adequate and smart metering of Nigerians will to a large extent deal with the grievances, which was why Credit Advance Payment for Metering Implementation (CAPMI) was introduced in 2011. Unfortunately, this did not solve the problem. Then came Meter Asset Provider Map, which was supposed to commence on the 1st of May 2019.
There's been a lot of work behind the scenes. What a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of infrastructure that will support or underpin the rollout of these meters. So things like the technology that is required on the back end to drive the process. The production of these meters also, the manufacturing of the meters, the securing of additional capital, right, that a map would require to run its operations, people, right, so resources, the manpower that will be required to go do the metering, right, and so a lot of that planning has been going on.
MAP has started. The truth of the matter is that the deployment is not going to be done once and for all. It's going to take time. And the deployment is done in such a way that areas are being identified where deployments will be taken, will be made. So you may not in your own area see meters being hung on the wall, but others are seeing that. And yes, probably in May, people wouldn't have seen much, because at that time they are still trying to finalize some agreements between the MAPs and the DISCOs. But now that one has been done. And right now the deployments have started. The procedure is simple. A DISCO and an MAP, they're supposed to make public how customers are going to approach them and then have access to their meters. First and foremost, you approach the DISCO, and I know the DISCOs and the MAPs are doing a lot of sensitization, whereby directing people to either go to their websites or to go to their business districts to make inquiry about what they need to do. And all they need to do is either you fill a form or you sign on to their website and fill a form there, and then send the form. From there, they are going to do what is called KYC, to know your customers. They will go and verify your location and ensure that it's ready for meter installation. When it's ready, what they are going to do is that they will send you a message telling you that your area is ready or your house is ready for meter installation. Go and make payment to an MAP's account. And they will tell you the MAP and then the address. So all you need to do is that you go to your MAP and then tell them, I have gotten this clarity or this clearance from the DISCO. And of course, the DISCO is even going to send another information to the MAP that so customer in this location is ready, he can make payment.
So far, over 100 meter service providers have been approved by NERC to work all across the country with DISCOs. MAPs are persons certified by the Commission as a manufacturer, supplier, vendor or installer of electric energy meters and or metering systems. They will be working as entities contracted by the DISCOs to provide meter to Nigerians.
The MAP people are consultants or contractors to the DISCO. DISCO is actually the one contracting the MAP service provision through those companies. So the relationship is like master-servant. It's like our business partnership. I invite you, you have money, you want to do business for me, we sign a contract under which you will do business, I will also do. What are my obligations under the business? What are your obligations on that business? We put everything together and it becomes an agreement between the two of us. So we definitely have meter service provision agreement with every of the MAP, which spells out what do I need to put into the business as a DISCO and what will they put into the business as a MAP provider. Under the obligation, the DISCO is still responsible for the meter, even the one the MAP has given. As far as you are concerned as a customer, you don't have any business with the MAP. Your business is still with your DISCO.
MAPs are not under the DISCO. MAPs are partnered. MAPs are partnered with the utility. So MAPs are partnered with utilities. The role of metering has now been onboarded. It's been onboarded to a MAP. So a MAP in conjunction with the utility is now providing meters to the end user. Because it's been challenging, right? It's an off-balance sheet asset financing program.
Single-phase meter costs 37,000 naira, while a three-phase meter is 67,000 naira. The money is expected to be refunded over time to the consumer through energy supplied by the DISCOs. However, before a customer pays, there are processes to get approved.
The single-phase meters go up to a maximum of 63 amps. So a customer that consumes below 63 amps falls into a single-phase meter. Consumers that consume below 100 amps are considered to be, they use three-phase meters. Anything above that it's a higher metering application. So for instance, if you're an industry or you have a large building that you want to meter, that doesn't essentially fall under this MAP program. However, I know that DISCOs are making plans to also address that. If you're as a consumer, first thing is to register. So for instance, all the DISCO offices online, you can register, your name, your address, and then there are subsequent forms that you feel that our team will now go out, take your registration form, go out, and we'll do what is called a survey. So we'll go and see, okay, it's a 2-bedroom house, as you've written in the form, this is what you've got in your house. We'll take all those details and we'll put it back into the central meter management system. And then thereafter, we have another team that comes to, after that assessment, initial survey assessment is done, we will feed back to the customer if there are a few things to be done to their property to update it to the standard where a meter can be installed. Once those things are put in place and they are done, then we now ask the customer to pay. The customer will be given a receipt, not a receipt, but like an invoice, a payment slip with a specific code, and then they will go to their nearest bank and pay for the meter. And within 10 days, our installation team will go out and fix the meter.
At any instance of default by any MAP in providing the meter in 10 days after payment or maintenance of the asset for 10 years, which is called meter service charge, consumers have avenue to air their protests.
First and foremost, an MAP is supposed to install that meter within 10 days after payment. After payment, not before. There may be a lot of work that the DISCO will need to do in cleaning the network to make it what we call meter ready. But after that is done and you have made payment, you can hold the MAP responsible within 10 days. If an MAP fails to do that, the DISCO has a consumer complaint procedure. You go and complain. If the DISCO didn't do anything, you get across to NERC and call NERC and complain that you have paid for a meter and it has not been installed. That is the first approach. As a commission, we are getting information as to what they are doing. And going forward, they are going to be sending reports to us when somebody is paid with the evidence, when meter is installed. Where we realize that the installation has gone beyond that 10 days, there is going to be a sanction. And we ensure that MAPs install meters exactly 10 days or even before the expiration of the 10 days.
The arrangement with the meter service charge is, however, one of the areas which the DISCOs hope would be given a little more consideration as the program progresses.
The NEC is trying to make sure it is universal. I don't believe it should be universal because service conditions in Yola is different from Kano, is different from Makurdi, and you cannot just say everything is the same. Unfortunately, it's a way of life in Nigeria that petroleum products and electricity must be the same here, it must be the same somewhere there, but it's never done. If you are not paying upfront and they have to buy the meter and come and fix in your house, and you are doing payments by monthly whatever as per the agreed terms, the investment he has made is through a banking or a financial transaction. And the financial transaction includes the premium and also the interest he's paying on the loan. So how can he recover that one back? So that recovery process is through what they call meter service charge, where he recovers both the cost of the capital and also recovers the insurance cover, such that when the time comes and you need to change your meter, it's not that it's coughing out money from his pocket. The insurance cover will have paid for it, but the customer has to pay for that insurance.
Meter Asset Provider as a program has the potential to increase employment opportunities in the country through its 30% local content policy, although the plan is that this will be increased in no distance time.
The reason for starting with 30% is to, first and foremost, we looked at what is the installed capacity of the factories we have in Nigeria today. And we looked at the quantity of meters that is needed to bridge the gap. And we said, okay, 30% for now is something that can be provided locally. And so for every meter asset provider, you are allowed to go and import, but make sure that the quantity of meters you are going to install, 30% of it will be locally sourced. And so the reason for keeping it at 30 as an initial stage is to watch and observe how the market evolves. By the time we now realize that there's a lot of capacity, and of course, many investors are looking at opportunities when they see there's an opportunity to either ramp up the capacity of existing factories or to even establish existing factories, new factories, it means there will be potential to produce a lot of meters locally. And what we said in that regulation is that the 30% will be reviewed periodically, meaning that there is a potential for it maybe in the next few years, we will be talking about 80% local content, so that all the jobs that are needed will be provided in Nigeria through the manufacturers, and will ensure that people actually benefit not only by having meters that is manufactured from Nigeria, but people are employed, gainfully employed, and we will help in ensuring that we reduce the number of unemployed people out there.
But the manufacturers say up till this time, there's not been any concrete commitment from any MAP towards the manufacturing of the local content.
So most of the meter asset providers, as a prerequisite in the submission of their applications, they had to have executed some sort of understanding with a local manufacturer to meet their 30% demand. What we have found is we have been approached by several meter asset providers, many who are successful, some who were not, but as of now, I can confirm to you that we do not have any formal, perhaps, commitment from the local, from the MAPs to us as local manufacturers. As you might agree with me, there's an industry standard around the world. As a manufacturing company, you will need a committed minimum amount of offtake for you to be able to commit to your manufacturing obligations. The cost and the logistics for procuring the raw materials and the components that we need in putting together all of this takes a little bit of time. While we are ready and we have unrivaled capacity within the sector, I can confirm to you that until now, perhaps because the MAPs haven't concluded their procurement processes, in respect of the discourse, we haven't been approached for offtake.
Procurement starts with a deposit to the manufacturer. The manufacturer uses that to buy some of the spares he needs and the knockdown parts, which is going to put together to give you a meter. Now, even that deposit, in large part, needs to be funded by financiers to the MAP. Now, if the contract that the MAP has is still short of being bankable, then the MAP will not be able to raise that funding to put down the deposit, which mobilizes or starts the procurement or the production process. Now, this is where that manufacturer is still having an issue. Once the contract is fully bankable, which we have come to some sort of agreement as to the ways to create securitization for the contracts, we are sure that he will begin to get orders from MAPs in order to start.
We are really bent on ensuring that that 30% or more is strong. No compromise over that. And one of the ways we have done that is not just putting in their contracts, is to insist that the people that they brought, they used, the manufacturers that they used in bidding to say this manufacturer has agreed to 30%, must consent in writing before they can change. So it's not a question of just waking up tomorrow and say, well, actually, I've changed my supplier and it's only so way. No, it won't happen.
The quality of the products must be uniform, whether imported or locally made. This is the promise which the regulator, NERC, has made to consumers through some set-down parameters.
Now what the procurement process has done is that the distribution companies are given clear parameters and specifications that every meter must meet. Every manufacturer, be it local, be it international, has an obligation to meet those specifications, or unless they will not be deployed into the distribution system of the distribution licensees, that is the DISCO. So we are not an exemption to this. All our meters have to meet a minimum specification, and most importantly of all, they meet the metering code, and they are tested and certified by the Nigerian Metering Testing Station.
MAP has some processes which should reduce to the barest minimum the chances of power theft, which has drastically affected revenue of the DISCOs over the years.
Down dropper from the pole to your house is consumer's responsibility. We won't buy the wires for you. But when the wires are connected, we will connect the wires when you are ready with that. And then we'll terminate where it is possible to see the meter. No longer will wire pass through the roof of a house and pass through the ceiling before coming down, because people have been bypassing and tampering with that.
Also for consideration is the personnel needed to implement the scheme. With over 4 million demands already on record and much more unconnected, the introduction of MAP is expected to put a pull on the demand for technicians who would install and maintain the meters. And the use of quacks could lead to disaster which will claim life and properties.
Even before now, there are people that are installing meters for the DISCOs. And then we call them MSPs, meter service providers. They are trained. And there's a program that they go to NAPTIM to train on how to install meters and the rest of them. And right now, what we have told the MAPs is that you need to allow all those meter installers that you're going to use to be trained. And we have, NAPTIM is there to train the technicians, and we have a lot of them that are trained already.
Every MAP provider had indicated how many technicians and things, installers that will be used to do this. In the first instance, it's not clear yet how many they have to install per day to meet up the demand until we start. And you know, it will start gradually, it will ramp up before coming down. At a point in time, you may find 10,000 people coming at a go. At that time, because it's an ad hoc thing, it will increase its number of installers, and every installer, you know, we certify by ourselves. It doesn't matter who is certifying them. They may come and say they have NEMSA certificate, they have NAPTIM. We say, oh, that is very good. You have to pass our own test before we allow you, because at the end of the day, the liabilities fall on us, not on the basis of whether it's NAPTIM. So we take them through our own installation process. We also take them through our own health and safety. And be sure you are there before we allow you to go and touch anything in our system, because the liabilities still fall on us. Even though they are not our staff, but at the end of the day, they'll say somebody died or somebody was injured on our own platform.
After meetings and papers signed between the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, the distribution companies and meter asset providers, it's expected that by latest September 2019, many Nigerians would have enough information and avenue to participate in MAP, and this would hopefully lead to the end of estimated billing and loss of revenue in the electricity circle. That's it for this episode of Big Story. Please share your thoughts with us through our various platforms. We are always glad to hear from you. I'm Imi John Mekwa.